It's always a pleasure to have you on board because everything you bring us is incredibly relevant because you are there in the middle of the conflict. And you're from the Donbass, which is the area that we understand Vladimir Putin would like to take. Can you give us a sense of what people there would feel about that, please, Peter?
Well, of course, our compatriots who are living on the part of the Donbass that's still under Ukrainian control are seeing what's happening just across the border, apart from the fact that, of course, the Ukrainian language is being eradicated, and people are being, passed through so-called filtration camps, etc. And there's like a neo-Stalinism that has actually taken root in those areas. I mean, yes, maybe those people do not want to speak Ukrainian. They were predominantly Russian-speaking before and remain so. But let's look at even the economic situation in my hometown of Donetsk. Those people don't have any access to water. Water is the hardest commodity to find in Donetsk. So whatever this peace and prosperity that was promised to the area during the so-called referenda in 2014, you remember the fake referenda, and the Russians, promised prosperity to those people. I mean, let's see how it's played out. Russia does not really care about the people in any of these territories. For all they care, for all Putin cares, this could be and is scorched earth in a lot of places that Russia has liberated, as they put it. And now what is being offered to Ukraine under the guise of a lasting peace agreement is to cede the territories that it still controls of the Donbass and Kherson and Zaporizhia. And that is a completely, of course, unworkable idea. Russia is going to use this only to take over those commanding heights, which are the cities of Kramatorsk and Slavyansk, which have been turned into veritable fortresses since 2014, and will be in a much greater, more advantageous position to continue attacking Ukraine from there, which we're pretty sure it will. None of the agreements that have been signed between Putin and Ukraine since Ukraine's independence are worth the paper that they are written on.
Indeed, it is. I mean, history shows this. It's not an opinion, it's fact. Various treaties and memoranda have been signed by Putin, and they've been disrespected and broken. And so you're saying that the view from Ukrainian people in the streets, in the Donbass, in the places that basically whatever Russia says cannot be trusted, whatever Putin says cannot be trusted.
No, indeed, it cannot be trusted. It will not be trusted. And that's why we've been disheartened to see this, the quite literally red carpet being rolled out for Vladimir Putin in Alaska, and then the American president essentially rebroadcast Vladimir Putin's wishes, and as it was noted, and you saw this just now, the joint press conference, European leaders, starting with the German chancellor, reiterated the need for a peace, not for a peace, but for a ceasefire. And Donald Trump has taken the Kremlin's line that he needs a lasting peace agreement. It sounds on the paper pretty good, right? Why have a temporary ceasefire instead of a long-lasting, eternal peace? But that is Russia's code for, eradicating the root causes of the conflict in order to achieve that peace. And that means preconditions that Mark, once again, having to state are nothing less than capitulatory to Ukraine, an army of symbolic 50 to 70,000 people, apparently. Of course, a hard no to NATO, in the enshrinement of Russia as the country's official language, full control of foreign policy choices of Ukraine, and presidential elections, which probably will mean an oust of Zelensky and an enthronement of some figure pliable to Russia. So that is exactly what Vladimir Putin wants, and that's essentially achieving his aims with other means other than military, which, as you have seen, have taken it a bit too long. Vladimir Putin is also tired of war. I can suspect that. But he will not finish it because he has not achieved his goals, and he continues saying it. And his goals remain full control over Ukraine and its foreign policy choices, its politics, its economics, its very life.
which of course is not at all what the people of Ukraine want. When we first spoke, going back to February 2022, when the invasion was launched, and you and I first conversed on this channel regarding the situation, we perhaps expected the worst to happen from your perspective. Russia to sweep across Ukraine, as Vladimir Putin intended to do, in just 3 days. That's what his prediction was. Now, here we are, more than 3 years down the line, and that hasn't happened. So in a sense, Ukraine can look at this in a very positive way, saying, look, we're strong, we've not been moved, we've held our ground to a large extent. Are you disappointed that there are no concessions coming from Putin? Are you disappointed that when Donald Trump speaks, sometimes it sounds like he's just putting Putin's point of view?
Those sound like rhetorical questions, Mark. Indeed, needless to say that that's the case. And what's been most disheartening for me, I just had I took part in a panel on Al Arabiya, Saudi TV channel, and I went head to head with a supporter of Donald Trump, part of his MAGA movement, and I kind of gathered what the main kind of line of their reasoning is, and that is that America, it turns out, it's not just Zelensky who doesn't have cards. Remember the rhetoric, right? But it's America apparently that doesn't have cards against Russia. Russia is ratcheted up its military production to high heavens, and America just can't catch up. It does not have the money, and it really considers China as the greatest threat. So they're saying is that we need to wrap this up because Russia will eventually, prevail. And once again, we know the sorry state of the Russian economy. We know Russia is losing up to 1,000 on some days, soldiers dead and wounded. But Putin, as the experienced KGB man, always puts on the airs and a great act. And if they have to, they can roll out inflatable ballistic missiles on their parade on Red Square just to sort of play it up. Why? I mean, America simply cannot play that game. Is that what's happening? So, Putin has been able to convince Trump of all of these things, and now America is cowering apparently in front of Putin, and we have to wrap this up, and at the same time denigrating the heroic example of the Ukrainian people who for 3.5 years, having taken on the world's greatest nuclear power, been an example to all the world what courage is, what the courage of your conviction is. And, it's most disheartening to see this kind of air of cynicism pervade the discourse lately.
Volodymyr Zelensky has been treated very differently this time from what happened on February the 28th. It's worth pointing out, I think, to people who perhaps have forgotten that back in February 2022, a Russian hit squad was very close to the presidential palace in Kyiv, setting out to assassinate Volodymyr Zelensky. So of all the leaders sat round discussing matters today, he is the one who's been very much on the sharp end. He is the president at war, and his opinion and his point of view perhaps the most relevant of all. However, in terms of the influence, the arms and the money, we turn to President Trump. Peter, how important is this trilateral meeting if it happens? And should it be trilateral, or, as Macron suggests, a four-way meeting with the EU, with Europe involved?
Of course, I think Europe should be involved, because whatever the security guarantees are eventually provided, they will have to involve Europe, because America, if it is to continue supplying Ukraine with arms, will no longer pay for them. That's what J.D. Vance has said. That's what Donald Trump has said. Europe is expected to pay for these arms, and Europe can afford to pay and is willing to pay. It's been time and again reiterated, most recently by the German Chancellor, who said Germany will allocate $500 million to pay for the next tranche of weaponry. It's only fair that Europe is involved. Donald Trump has said it's Europe's war, and in a way he's right. It is much more Europe's war than America's war, simply geographically. So by that token as well, it has to be a part of the equation. Europe has hosted millions of Ukrainian refugees, and in case of, God forbid, Ukraine's failure, you're talking about many more millions of refugees spilling over European borders, most likely not American borders. It has to be. When it comes to the other players, it seems that the sides have boxed themselves in, even though Zelensky sounded a note of being amenable to that. Early on during the war, Ukraine passed the law whereby it is illegal to engage in negotiations with Putin. Whether it was wise or not, history will judge. But Putin himself, I think that's the sticking point. Putin has time and again declared that he views Zelensky as illegitimate. Zelensky is beyond his, beneath his dignity. I would have a hard time believing that Vladimir Putin is ready for that meeting.
So Putin's position, as always, as it's been consistently all along, is that he won't shift. He wants to take Ukraine. Simple as that. Donald Trump talks about ending the fighting, but without really confronting Vladimir Putin. And that's going to be, I think, Peter, the big problem, isn't it? Actually, someone standing up to Putin and telling him that he's wrong in that situation.
Of course, if the leader of the free world, the world's most powerful person, just every time meets with Putin and winds up under some sort of hypnosis and starts rebroadcasting Vladimir Putin's lines, you just wonder what goes on in those limos, where they travel without translators, etc. You just wonder, as America, so the rest of the Western world, if there's still the idea of a Western world, So I am, at the same time, I hold out hope that once again there will be a turnaround. And Donald Trump has been known to do that, right? And his patience does run out, except that let's at least see. America shows some cards. There is leverage. America has leverage. Has Donald Trump tried this leverage? Not so much. All these promises of sanctions and these deadlines, putative deadlines, 2 weeks here, another 2 weeks, and nothing, right? The very least that could have been and should have been done is to attach the idea of a ceasefire to any meeting with Putin as a precondition. That hasn't been done. I think lessons have to be learned. And America needs to get some backbone, in understanding that, let's not fall prey to Putin's wiles.
Peter Zalmayev, thank you for joining us as always, Director of the Eurasian Democracy Initiative. It's always a pleasure to speak to you, Peter. Do stay safe and take care. And best wishes to you, your family, all your friends out there in Kyiv. Pleasure speaking to you, sir. Peter Zalmayev, thank you very much indeed.